Are live now. Yes, we are. Hey, everybody. Welcome, welcome. We are so happy to be back here on a Monday like we usually are. We're down a few panelists today. So normally, we have Mia and Amy and JoJo, and they are not available at the moment. So it's us, but we've got it like a full agenda of discussions to have. So I just want to welcome everybody for being here, everybody in the comments, everybody that found their way to us like they normally do on our Monday night Women's Council times. And before we start, I just want to acknowledge our ancestors and bring them into the discussion with us and have them work through us and allow us their wisdom and their teaching so that we can move in a positive way and affect positive change within our communities. I am Maya, and I am the board chair for the Woven with Resilience Women's Council. And then I will pass it on to the other beautiful young ladies on the panel to introduce themselves as well.
You want to go first, Jennifer?
Sure. So my name is Jennifer. I am going to introduce myself in my my tribal language, which is Ojibwe-Moan. Bushu, Jeba, Nang, Indigenous Cause, Miskodesi, and Dudame, Mashkazibing, and Dunjaba, Dash, Misquabikang, and Da. I just said that. I just shared with you my Anishinaabe name, and that I am I'm an enrolled member of the Bad River Band of Lake Superior, Ojibwe. I'm Turtle Clan, and then I also live in my other community is the Red Cliff Band of Lake Superior, Ojibwe. I'm super honored to be here. I've been asked to sit as the vice chair for Woven with Resilience. I think this is going to be an amazing collective of strong sisters, and I'm just looking forward to making some positive change in our world. Miigwech.
Awesome. So I'm Jacqueline. I don't know any native languages. I'm reconnecting. I'm like, me llamo Jacqueline. Mi nombre. Yes. So reconnecting, I have a background. I was a domestic infant adoptee. I've worked in domestic infant adoption and worked in post-adoption services, working with adoptees who are essentially trying to make sense of their history, especially their history that's less known to them. And then, joining Jennifer today. You got the double J's today.
Yes.
So, I'm kind of excited. What do we want to talk about?
Well, I think Jacqueline, just in the little bit of conversation that we've been able to have, we have such similar backgrounds. I think, if we want to talk about Indigenous parenting, maybe kind of talk about our backgrounds a little bit, our experiences. I didn't really give any kind of like professional overview of who I am. I am an Indigenous birth worker. That's definitely my heart, my passion. I work a boring government job in the real world, but we won't talk about that. But I've been an Indigenous birth worker for a pretty long time. I'm also a tribal foster parent. My daughter, who is not my biological daughter, but my daughter by every measure of love and heart, is here. She's in her room saying, "Mom, you're always on the computer, the phone." So, but she knows that I'm doing this for her, and for everyone else. So I don't know if that's something that you want to kind of talk about, or if there's something else here.
Well, especially with Indigenous families specifically, my background with domestic infant adoption, then with parenting, I've also worked with Child Protective Services, but also Indian Child Welfare. So I've taught parenting classes for parents that have Indian Child Welfare cases. So I tend to be more when the parents, they're parents of older children, as opposed to newborns. But especially with the ICWA lawsuit and everything that's going on, I think it's really important for people to understand, just there's a lot of stereotypes around Indigenous parenting and the styles and just kind of the background of ICWA and all of that.
Right. So, my family has been, involved in government our whole life, especially tribal government. My dad was the prosecuting attorney for the Red Cliff Band for a long time, and then he was the chief judge there as well, and now he's the chief judge for another tribe down lower Wisconsin. And so, we've been involved in Indian child welfare professionally and then also personally, the majority of our lives. I think it's really important for people to understand what the Indian Child Welfare Act is, why it's important, why it's tied to tribal sovereignty, why it even existed in the first place. And one of the things is that, Native communities, as things evolved through time, our children were just being taken from us. They were taken from us and put into residential schools and boarding schools. They were taken from us for, deeming us to be unfit. I mean, we all know about the horror stories around sterilizing women, the disenfranchisement that happened when the assimilation of reservations were formed, dismantling the family unit, disenfranchising our men, making sure that they could not provide for the family. They were jailed for hunting and fishing and gathering and trying to put food on the table. And then all of the welfare was put into the female's name, the homes. And so that really just excluded our men from the whole family unit. And then you introduce alcohol into that mix and it can be really devastating. That's a way to try to kill a nation. And I mean, that's some of the things that we're looking at. And as we have moved forward and gained strength and power under our, individual constitutions. And I know there's unfortunately, a lot of Native tribes, or fortunately, whichever way you look at it, that don't have those connections with the U.S. government. I think that's another topic of debate. But for those that do, and, we have the federal ICWA, and then we also have several states that have their own state law, Wisconsin, where I'm located, being one of them. It really happened because our babies were being stolen from us, and for reasons that would not necessarily be put on another family of a different ethnicity, maybe. And our culture is so incredibly important. Our customs, our traditions, our language, our songs, our ceremonies, they're so important to who we are as people. And when you take our babies from us, then who do we pass that legacy on to? So ICWA was really formed in recognition of the fact that Indian parents, Native parents, and their children were being unfairly targeted. And so ICWA was formed so that when there is the need for a removal for a child for their safety, that they stay within that family unit. They stay within that extended family, because our families are not the same as like the traditional mainstream Caucasian families where it's mom, dad, and 2.5 kids or whatever. We have cousins, aunties, uncles, grandparents, people of all backgrounds. And so we that's our extended family, but those are our family. Our cousins are like our brothers and sisters. Our aunties and uncles are like our moms and dads. And so, hey, so I just feel like it's really important for people to understand that connectedness that we have with our families, with our communities. And then when people try to take our babies from us, what would you do? What would you do if you're standing around with your siblings and your kids are out playing in the yard, and all of a sudden some people just come up that don't speak your language and they just take your babies? And you don't understand it. You don't know why. You have no reason. You can't see them. You don't know how to find them. There's no transportation. You are completely, put aside. And then we're talking, historically how that occurred. So ICWA really acknowledged the fact that, like I said, Native families were unfairly being targeted. And so it put protections in place so that our children will stay within our communities, so that they can continue to be immersed in who we are as within our Indigenous communities. They can understand and be exposed to their culture, hopefully their language, understand that they are rooted in their land and place. And I think that's like something that we as women need to do as well, and acknowledge the land that we're living on. You know, I'm living in 1854 Treaty Territory land. I'm an Anishinaabe. I'm right on Lake Superior. That's all really incredibly important because we are of the land. That is our first mother. And so we have to protect her. And along with protecting our land, you know, I always say that we protect our water too. And our babies are right in that mix. And our babies are precious to us, and we love them and we want them. And that needs to be known. So I'm rambling. I'm sorry. I'd love to hear from you. And I see that Tara's joined us. So, you know, I just want to give everybody, I won't monopolize the conversation.
Yeah, Tara, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey guys, sorry. Yeah, I'm Tara. Sorry I'm late. I was down at the legislative building.
Cool. Well, we're just kind of chatting a little bit about our backgrounds since we have similar histories working in essentially like family services. One thing I was going to say, Jennifer, I don't think I ever mentioned this because I'm in San Antonio, Texas. So there's 3 reservations in Texas, but not located near San Antonio per se. So the way that I've worked with tribal members is actually I have taught for several years with different inpatient rehabs. So different addiction treatment facilities. And so that's usually how they get referred to me for the parenting classes. So other than that, I just work with marginalized communities. San Antonio is a huge Hispanic population, Chicana. You know, I think most people kind of know that we're the home of the Alamo, the Riverwalk. But yeah, so yeah, that addiction aspect is huge. When I started working with parents in addiction, I stopped drinking completely. So I think it's been about 6-7 years now. But it didn't feel right to.
Well, that's a really, I mean, that's awesome. You know, I think I should probably be transparent in the fact that I'm also in recovery and have been in recovery for 14 and a half years. You know, that's something that is so prevalent in our communities. And, you know, all I can say about that is, you know, I didn't stop on my own. There was a intervening that occurred, not like a typical traditional intervention. Unfortunately, we lost somebody who was very close to us. He was walking home from a party and he was hit and killed by somebody driving home from that party. We were all living together at the time. We were really, you know, super close. And so, I mean, I'll be honest too about the fact that I was really waiting for somebody to say, let's go drink or let's stop drinking. But, you know, it wasn't going to be me because I had a mad love affair with alcohol and drugs. And I used that to numb out a lot of my own personal trauma and pain and not have to feel. And so to think about letting that go was really difficult. But it was an opportunity. And unfortunately, through my friend's death, you know, I thank him all the time because he gave me the opportunity to live.
Well, I really commend you. With COVID, I've been amazed. I've had clients who had been doing great, had been sober for 5 years, who COVID I've never seen anything knock so many people off the wagon like COVID did.
It was hard. It was hard.
I can't imagine. San Antonio, we had our child death rate and the homicide rate like skyrocketed. But yeah, I had so many clients that relapsed. And so to stay sober or to, you know, pursue sobriety again following COVID, it's such a huge accomplishment, because I can't even imagine with the stress level and just all the other implications that COVID had.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I've said this before. My sister and I have had lots of conversations about this, and we both agree that COVID is like a brutal truth teller. It told us about who we were as individuals. It told us about who our family and friends were, who our community was, and the world in general. And it was I really lost a lot of my faith in humanity during COVID. I come from a public health background. And I know what it takes to try to heal people from a Western medicine perspective, but also from a traditional spiritual perspective. I attend a lot of ceremony, and it was super frustrating, to be in that place where you can't connect with people on a face-to-face level. We had to keep our circle super small, but then you're hearing all these things out in your community that you can't do anything about because we're on lockdown, or we're trying to stay safe. So I feel like, that's when all of some of the issues that we have yet to really address and deal with around mental health, substance abuse, a lot of different, things that happen in all communities, they just became so prevalent. And, we lost a lot of community members over this last year and a half due to addiction. And it is devastating, and and go ahead, Tara.
I locked down for an entire year before I said, you know what, nobody's talking about these issues. We need to be out there. And I went out there. You know what I mean? And I went out there and I started telling my story, because my truth, I'm not going to call it a story, because that's the whole reason why they call our oral history myths, because it was never recorded in the colonial setting, right? In their laws and by their standards. So with the discovery of the footprints that are like 23,000 years old, right? Coming in the way we said, the way our elders always said, is not only and I told you so, but just further proof to me why we should just call it a truth, because it's truth, right? So I got out there and I'm like speaking my truth, because like I'm not like a scholar or anything like that. Like my experience is lived, right? Like I was taken against my will and I was exploited for like 20 years. And I did all that cycles. I went through the cycles, and I thought that stuff was normal until I realized it wasn't, right? So I'm here like screaming it from the rooftops, like this isn't normal. So it's like, but yeah, so that's what we need to do. Like we need to be out there, we need to be online, we need to like there's just everybody just needs to be doing something, right? So that we're not letting people forget about what's really going on, like, and that this is happening in our own backyards too.
Yeah, I totally relate to what you were saying, Jennifer, with the loss of faith in humanity. I'm not from the government side, I'm from the nonprofit side. And I'm sure a lot of people know nonprofits can be just corrupt. And I had started a parenting program, huge parenting program locally. And I worked with high risk parents. So like I was doing, I think like 7 classes a week.
Wow.
So maintaining those classes is huge, because a lot of them are violent offenders. I work with a lot of like abuse, family violence. Anyway, like just the organization was just being super corrupt, and like I was like, I can do it virtually as long as they have that weekly connection, like they're good. But these people have been in this class for 2+ years. like I literally did the class on Valentine's Day because they refused to like take a week off. It was a romantic Valentine's Day for me. Yeah. But they weren't having it. And then like the more vocal I was, the more frustrated they got. And then eventually they were like, you have a bad attitude, so we think it's best if we part ways. And I was like, I think it's best if we part ways. And I think it's best if you approve my unemployment.
Yeah.
I think it's very much in your best interest. But I was so mad because it took me out of the way to help these people. And so many of my clients lost their rights to their children. So many of my clients relapsed. So many of my clients ended up back in prison. I had a couple clients that were couples where one killed the other. And it was just one of the things that I've noticed too with social media. And I'm sure like you realize this too, Jennifer, like when like we work in this field, you know, like we know the signs of compassion fatigue. We know the signs of burnout. And that's one thing that I have seen a lot of is there's a lot of people who just kind of jump into this activism and don't really know the field and don't have education. And so to me, it's like clear as day that they're exhibiting like complete compassion fatigue, complete burnout, and they have no idea. And so I'm just sitting there watching like with concern, like, oh my gosh, like, is this person going to be okay? Like they need to pause and take self-care because it's just, you see them like getting angrier and angrier. And I don't know if you've ever like experienced burnout or compassion fatigue, but
only a couple times, just a couple.
I got like one point, like full on like compassion fatigue, and it's hard to get out of. Like it's it's traumatic, and like it takes time to break that cycle. So I've noticed.
So compassion fatigue would be like when you're desensitized to it.
Yes.
Yeah, you just start to become apathetic to people's stories, and you just start to take like a can you just figure it out attitude, and you just get really complacent, and your empathy is like gone almost. You're just completely
and you
drained.
experience secondary trauma.
Yes,
that's one of the big things.
That's why our organization is like survivor-led initiatives, because it's hard to be apathetic when you've already lived that, right? You know how they're feeling, so you're not going to be as like it's harder for me to judge why people are doing that. And you'll see me like online commenting on people's things because my views are my views, right?
Well,
I find that it's hard
it's easy to get apathetic if you have a caseload that's too high and you don't allow the self-care, because that's the thing is you're becoming re-traumatized, especially if you have personal experience in it, because it starts to aggravate certain areas, and you have a sensitivity due to that trauma that makes, you would think that like the way the brain works, you would think that you'd be resilient, but instead the amygdala is heightened sensitivity to it. And so
they say that even like mental or emotional abuse causes brain damage, right?
Yeah.
So that could be like part of it. But yeah, like I feel the re-traumatization like 100%, especially when I have cameras in my face, like tell me your story. Like
I know.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel that.
I
feel that.
So, I mean, one of the things that I can say is like, these are our lived experience, right? As Indigenous people, as people from, Indigenous communities, we're living this every day, right? We're in these moments that people, right. And in these moments that people call movements, right? And so we are part of the movement as well. And so we are, people that other community members will come to, they'll seek out. as long as we don't, haven't pissed everybody off. I mean, that's been my experience too.
I didn't know. I've pissed some people off. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, it happens. I mean, I really just try to think about, like, we try to love each other through it as best we can, right? We take a break, we move away, and then, I feel like things reconcile themselves, and then we can come back to the table and talk with each other. But when I ran our maternal child health program for our community clinic, that was one of the things that we built in was reflective practice and self-care. So we did a lot of smudging, we did a lot of ceremony, we did a lot of talking, because these things that we're coming across with parents, our parents are just so overwhelmed. Our families are so overwhelmed. They're living, 3 families to one house. The poverty is high. Obviously, the job rate is low because we live in a tourist town. We're economically and geographically isolated from the rest of the state because we're at the very tippy top. We think about that, and then there's a loss, of certain things, and we have to be able to meet people where they're at. Let them tell us what fire is burning the brightest for them in that moment. But also coming across parents who have been so overwhelmed by life and life's challenges that they're apathetic to their own life is also triggering for people. And I know it's like triggering, it triggered me. Just like, so how do we do this? How do we work together? And when somebody just like looks at you and says, I don't know. And
you know what I feel like? I feel like a lot of us have just accepted that this is life. You know what I mean? This is normal. This is life. It took me like 33 years to realize, like, hey, people really don't live like this. I heard
this isn't the best it could be.
Yeah, like I heard these 2 older women talking on the bus, and they're talking about like their childhood home and how they had horses and stables. And like, I'm such an imaginary person. Like, I just got this like beautiful picture in my head, and I was like, people live like that? Like, that's not just in the movies? Like, I was so perplexed because I've never known anything close to that, right? Like, my measure of health of wealth as a child would be like when people had fresh fruit in their house. Like, what? And so I feel like a lot of the time we've just accepted that, right? And it's and it does come down to how do we break that cycle of the normalization of the abuse and the trauma and the cycle that we've perpetuated throughout the generations.
Well, I think a huge thing is, one thing that I always kind of cringe at is it's so like social media is newer to me, because like I was building a program. I was like I was seeing over 200 clients a week. Like, I didn't have time for social media. And so this has been like, I only started TikTok like July 30th. So this has been so weird to me to see how people behave. I feel like an anthropologist. And it really is like, and it's sad in a way too, because you see how little people hold back when it comes to like, I'm like, you realize there's another person on the end of what you're saying.
You know what? Good. Let them expose themselves. Good. We could all destroy them if they come for us.
Well, there's this huge like, and it's, granted, like my line of work, I work very much with people who are considered irredeemable. I work with felons. I work with people who have people killed. Like I work with,
I would like to say this.
Oh, hold on.
I would like to say this while we're on the topic.
So there's no one who's like not redeemable to me.
Right.
But with this cancel culture,
Yeah.
there's this attitude of like, someone makes a mistake or someone says something, and before anyone asks for an explanation and like they automatically assume the worst and they're
Right.
automatically condemning that person. And to me, it just, it's like a knife to the stomach, because I'm like, you never know what's going on behind closed doors. That person could be on a ledge. And are you convincing them to step down, or are you pushing them off? Like, and so I think that's huge. And relating to people is giving each other space to be human and make mistakes.
I don't know. I call it accountability culture, because most of the time they probably deserve it. But for me, like I feel like you said, there's nothing that's irredeemable unless they're harming children. Then like there's no love lost on what happens to them. But that's just my thoughts. You know what I mean? Like and
I get where like people can get accountability culture, but then where my degree's in communication with a focus in mediation and conflict resolution. And so then literally the worst way, like if you want to get someone to not change their behavior and like stick to what they're doing and to do it to an even stronger degree, then call them out aggressively and yell at them and humiliate them. And
I'll tell you all about being oppositionally defiant. I always tell everybody, just know that's how it's going to be.
I'm like, it's just the neuroscience. Like it's literally like, literally my job is in behavior modification. Mm-hmm. Like I work with people who've literally killed people. And I have to be the one to convince them that they need to change.
See, that's redeemable. That I do feel like that is 100% redeemable. That is, people can change. They can.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, there's something.
And you're absolutely right about the defiance thing. You're not wrong. But a lot of these people, they're not going to change their mind anyways. Let's be honest. Especially when it comes to
but to give up like that, and that's like throwing a person away. Like, they're not going to change their mind anyway, so I'm not going to waste the time on them.
So I think, one of the things is like, I feel like people have just gotten kind of like fed up with each other. They're just sort of fed up with each other. And so we default to that cancel culture. And I'm just more about like a check yourself culture. Like, just like, let's figure it out. Let's try to have a conversation. We can agree to disagree. We can maybe even have foundational and fundamental differences, but that doesn't mean that any of us are less important. But I think one of the biggest things is that we as a society, as a human race, don't understand that we're all equally important and we all have valuable gifts to share. If we all thought that, we wouldn't be in half the crap that we're in, for real. Like, we just wouldn't. We leave space for people to reconcile, to have restoration, to hold themselves accountable. And one of the things is you have to be able to lead by example. You have to, show people, you have to walk the talk, period. And just because somebody walks away from you or doesn't want to listen or isn't receiving the message that you're giving doesn't mean that you haven't planted a seed for the next time.
That's huge.
And so we just have to remember that, we all have done things that could have gotten us banished from our communities. We've all done things that we're not proud of. And so we're not the ones to sit in judgment of that, but we have to be able to, again, have that space for people to come together and have constructive conversation. If we don't, what are we doing?
So I always tell this story because I think a lot of people get caught up in like, the world is not black and white. And we so badly want to make it that way, and it just doesn't work that way. But anyway, so like I said, I work with abuse cases and I work with the parents. So I work with the people who are the alleged abusers. It's not a job a lot of people want. It's not a job a lot of people can have. There was this one parent I worked with, and I do have his permission to share the story as long as I don't identify him, just to make sure everyone knows, where he had been zip tying his child to the bed 12 hours a day. And CPS, everyone was just, the minute they would talk to him, they'd attack and they'd get judgmental. They'd get, and understandable. I mean, it's a horrible thing. Anyway, that's not my approach. So when I met with him, I usually go through, okay, so what?
I'm sorry, this is triggering for me. This is really triggering for me. I can't partake in this conversation because as a survivor of childhood sexual abuse and abuse, I can't listen to the side of the abuser because, like I said, my that's where my line is. You know what I mean? People can be murderers, they can be whatever they want, but the moment you start harming helpless children that we as parents are placed on this world to protect, then I can never see that side. I will never see that side. And those are the only kind of people that you'll see me call out online and stuff. Like, everything else is redeemable.
Okay, well, I'm going to finish the story. If you need to step out, that's fine. Anyway, so essentially, I had asked what had made him decide on that method.
Yep.
And he pulled down his collar and there was this huge scar. And he was like, well, I thought that was the nicest way to do it because I was chained 24/7. And I realized he had no idea that this was wrong. And there just wasn't the concept. And no one had ever asked him his side. And it was heartbreaking. And it was one of the first times that I realized, like, you never know as much as you think you do. And so after that, I mean, I really stopped assuming, or I just assumed I knew way less than I did. Because you just never know. What
I wish that Tara would have stayed. I mean, I totally understand. I think not that we're trying to convince her of anything, and we absolutely respect her boundaries and her story and, her experiences, and we give her all the love and thank her for the time that she was able to spend with us. I think one of the things that is really difficult when we're talking about child abuse and we're talking about the side of the abuser is understanding that nobody comes out that way.
Yeah.
There are multi-generational traumas and historical traumas that, fuel that fire and keep that cycle going. And in order to understand it, we have to try to look at it from all perspectives. And I again, my heart goes out to Tara. I hope that, we can continue a conversation that is on a more comfortable plane for her.
Well, she's got to have her boundaries.
Right.
And
I want to be clear, we're not sticking up. We're not sticking up and we're not advocating for child abusers.
No,
we're
absolutely.
just saying that within the system, there has to be a place for people to understand and come to terms with the things that they've done and have true accountability and true restorative justice. Because if we only look at the person who's been abused, the person who's been victimized or traumatized, if we only look at that, we're only working on half the issue. We have to also understand, where is this coming from? Where does it come from, so that we can help to intervene, we can scaffold and walk with people as they're on a healing journey. It is a really delicate place. It's a fine line. And, I've worked with parents, I've worked with, people who have criminal backgrounds as well. And, we all belong to each other. So we really have to be able to at least leave space and know also our boundaries. And if that's not the work that we can do, that we leave space for other people to do that work, you know? And I think that's understanding where you come from. And I think it's really important. And I mean, I commend Tara because she knows where her line is. She knows where those boundaries are. And that's really important for people to be able to stand up and say that. You know, I think it can
But
just
I understand too, because I mean, I myself, I was in therapy by the time I was 5.
Yeah. Yeah.
I did not have an idyllic life. I had a very, very sad story.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, it was from the beginning. It just did not start off good, and then it just kept progressing. I literally was adopted from an agency that was selling babies. But there was a time during my like healing and processing where I would have had that same response, where it wouldn't have been healthy for me to, like, I would have had to draw that line. But everyone's at a different spot.
Right.
And that's the thing is, and then there are times where I'll get to the point where I have to draw that line again. And I think ultimately there's nothing wrong with that. I think the best thing is just that you take the time to know it and take the time to understand what you need and allow yourself the space and the grace to give yourself that, because we put so much pressure on ourselves, especially women, like especially moms, like, you know, we carry this emotional burden of like, we've got to not only take care of, you know, kids, spouse, but we also need to anticipate their needs. And it's just, it always amazes me. I remember like when I first started teaching parenting, I would tell like classes, I was like, oh my gosh, every day I feel like a failure as a parent. And I'd have so many parents cry. Yeah. And I was like, well, what are you doing? Like, what did I do? Yeah. I was like newbie at it. And they were like, you're an instructor and you feel that way? Like other people feel that way? And I was like, yes, we all feel that. None of us feel like we're doing everything perfect.
There's no roadmap. There's no instruction manual. You know, I mean, you are operating on the information that you received as a child, right? And how you were parented. And so that's going to be your go-to. And so if you grew up in a traumatic, you know, home, or you had traumatic events happen during your childhood, those are going to be really super impactful for you. That's going to be your lived experience.
Well, and we're going to recreate that trauma.
Right. And it's weird because people would think you would go the opposite way. But one of the things that I know just from my own experience is, you know, we tend to default to what's comfortable. And what's comfortable is what we went through as children. You know, so if it was chaotic and it was abusive, that chaos, I always used to say that, like, I'm like the master of my own chaos. I love to like sweep it all together in a pile and then blow it apart and then be able to sweep it all back together, because then it shows people that I'm important, right? That I can, like, you know, I can save the world. See what happened? You know, my life blew apart and then I got it all back together. Look how great it looks. And that is, that's an addictive cycle as well.
That is.
And being able to talk with people, you know, get into some therapy if you can, find out who you are. You know, we all have to heal our, you know, our inner child. I know it sounds like super cliche, but
it's really true. Otherwise we keep self-sabotaging.
Yeah, because you have to reach down and you have to be the parent and provide the love that little, you know, individual, that little soul didn't get at that moment, and then say, I'm going to do my best to make sure that never happens to you again. And then you have to come back through that trauma and bring them with you and make sure that you are protecting them. And that is a really difficult thing because it's not easy. And that can be traumatizing, and you have to be prepared. That's a journey. That's a healing journey. We talk about in Ojibwe culture, the healer, the great white bear that sits in the north, his healing is merciless. It's exacting. And so sometimes the cure is going to be stronger or more difficult than the actual disease or sickness or issue that you're dealing with. So you need to be ready for that healing and ready to receive it. And everybody is going to have a little bit of fits and starts along the way of their own healing journey. And so it's a journey of self-discovery. And, I shared this before when we were first kind of getting to know each other, but I really just want people to hear the fact that, from my belief system, we were prepared to come here, by our ancestors. They were giving us all of the teachings that we needed. We knew our names, we knew our songs, we knew our language, we knew our colors, we knew our ceremonies, and then we were given the opportunity to see our entire life before we even came here to this mortal plane. We were given the opportunity to see our entire life, and we chose it anyway. For all the hardship, for all the beauty, for all the pain, for all the joy, for all of it, because we knew as souls that there were lessons that we needed to learn and things that we needed to do and people that we needed to connect with, other souls. And we try, and for me, that helps me trust in this process of living, that we're all put where we're supposed to be when we're supposed to be there. And we acknowledge that, and that makes it so much easier to love and move forward. That's really what it's all about.
It really is. And it's funny because I feel like the older I get, the less I know.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
I look at these young, I have a preteen, and then I look at some of these early 20-year-olds, on social media who, are talking like they have it all figured out. And I'm like, oh man, I miss that confidence.
Yeah.
To go back and just have that assurance, even if I was wrong.
Right. But that is the beauty of aging, right? We go through our stages and we have these moments, and that's why I understand a lot of people get really irritated with just talking about Gen Z. I'm raising a Gen Zer. I have a niece who's a real strong Gen Zer, and her and I, it's so funny, when my sister was pregnant with her, I said, I've had a couple dreams, sister. I'm really sorry to tell you that she's going to be like her auntie. And she was like, what?
Oh, no.
And I said, well, I'll be here and I can help you a little bit. She can learn from some of my mistakes, but they're both really strong young women. And I get, the anger that comes with that generation, feeling like they've been handed, a really rotten future, a world that is on fire. I understand the frustration, but what I want them to realize, and again, we talked about this as a group, like creating this, the things that we do, the passion that we put our heart and soul into, the projects that we put our heart and soul into, those are really love letters to the future. That we are trying. We're not perfect. We've done things that are not right. We have made missteps. We have had huge mistakes. We've had small blunders, but we've also had some success, and we've learned some things along the way. And just like it is that we've, our ancestors, our elders were put here by our ancestors to help us. We were put here to, help the next generation and keep that in mind. And I just hope that even as angry and mad as we all are about the situation that we're in and the, 3.5 business days that we have to get our world under control, that the next generation realizes that we really are trying and that we really do love them.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate. And I wish we could hand them something better, I really do.
I wanted to address this comment that I just saw. Cordy said, that's what I'm trying to tell myself with not reaching blood quantum. I chose to learn from this experience and the heartbreak of it. And I just wanted to say my heart goes out to you.
Yeah.
I can't say that I relate exactly to your experience. I was in a domestic closed infant adoption, and so my records are sealed, so I wasn't allowed to know any of my background. I only found out my ethnicity 5 years ago. And it's tough like this, and reconnecting and the different standards you put on yourself and the different standards you feel, whether they're there or not, or it's a lot. And I just wanted to say I'm sorry. It's never easy when it comes to, that for me, that feeling of belonging is hugely triggering as an adoptee. And whether the blood quantum says it or not, to me, I think that you're awesome, and it doesn't matter, and it's stupid. So
No, it doesn't. And blood quantum is a dangerous thing. It's a really dangerous thing. It has nothing to do with anything that is actual, real, or that we have control over. So we're getting punished for something that was supposed to come out of love, right? Which is a new soul in this world. And that's part of the problem, is that then our babies get trapped in the system where we started out talking about ICWA, where they have no protection. And that is a huge problem. And, my heart goes out to Cordy as well. And we appreciate you for joining us this evening. And I hope that this conversation...
Thank you for sharing.
And that this conversation has kind of taken a kind of a twisty turn. But I think that's what happens when we start talking from the heart. But blood quantum can be really dangerous. And, there's no centrifuge in the world that's going to separate our blood. We are from the land, and I understand. So even as a enrolled tribal member, I did not grow up on my reservation. I grew up in the border town next to the reservation that's next to Red Cliff, which is it's a reservation that's right across the bay from where I live. And so I grew up there, and I hung out there, and I lived there. But because of the way that tribal membership is set up, I was always told, you're not from here, you're from Bad River. Oh. You can't. And we're less than, 30, 40 miles apart. And if you go right across the water, we're 20 miles apart. So that was always something that was instilled in me. And then when I would go to my home community, to my home res, and spend time with my grandparents, and we would go out and hang out with the kids, they'd always say, you're not even from here. You're from Frog Bay. That's what they called Red Cliff all the time. You're from Frog Bay. And I'm I'm not. This is my place. This is where I live. I've lived here before. We aren't living here now. And that is something that really was huge for me. And so I spent a lot of my time trying to fit in, trying to find my place. And unfortunately, one of the things that I found was the easiest for me, because of the trauma in my childhood, was to use, because I had an instant family, right?
Yeah.
And it was so crazy when I stopped using, even though those there were some core people that I made really lifelong friendships with, the majority of that family fell away.
That's tough.
And so that's, I just always feel you're, even though you have this card that says you're a tribal member, even though you can afford those, of those privileges and those rights and responsibilities, we can still feel ostracized by our own communities because of really arbitrary things, because of geographical boundaries, because of, old grudges that are still continued on, that we don't even know why we're carrying those things. And I think that's the thing that we need to say to each other is it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Well, and I think what's cool is, I mean, I literally, like I said, I didn't know what I was. And I still legally don't have the right to my records. What people don't realize is like adoptees are one of the few groups that have less rights. And so I don't have legal access to my medical records or my ethnic records. The only reason I was able to find out that information was because DNA tests became available. But what I think shows a lot is I was raised by the whitest parents probably on this planet. Like literally like Harold and Gail Banks are their names.
Well, hello, Harold and Gail Banks.
But like, I mean, whiter than white. They dressed up as like Forrest Gump and whatever the white
and Jenny
and Jenny for like Halloween like last year. They're whiter than white. And I even am super white. My biological dad is Hispanic, Chicano history. My biological mom is red hair, green eyes, and she grew up in Yugoslavia. But anyway, most people think I'm white. You can't see on here, but it's super freckles. But yet here, I was invited to join this Indigenous Council. I clearly don't know what tribe I'm from. I mean, I can't even get my original birth certificate without petitioning a judge. And so I think that's important to remember too, that like, yeah, I think a lot of people, I'm sure there definitely are a lot of people that are, keep people out, but I was very surprised to be brought in because that's just never been my experience as an adoptee. And yet here I am, the whitest of white,
Well, we're so glad to have you because I think that's the thing is, that's what they want us to do. They want us to judge each other and include or exclude each other based on something so completely out of our control, which is the color of our skin, where we grew up or like where we lived. As children, we didn't have control over any of that stuff. So, what we can do to combat that is to really look at people based on their character, who they are, who is their heart, and what
they desire to know. Like, yeah. I think the fact that there's people who have this desire to know, like, even if they're a small percentage Indigenous, if it's that's what they really want to know more about and that's what they're interested in, I think that's amazing. And I think that's commendable.
Yeah, and it's your heart. And I know there's people that will say, like, we have to protect that. We have to protect our communities and we have to protect our enrollment. And I absolutely understand that from a political standpoint. But I think in order to really change this world, we have to connect on a different way. It doesn't lessen who we are as Indigenous people. It doesn't lessen where we come from. We talk about, creating allyship. We talk about, creating accomplices or supporting accomplices, people who can go into spaces that we can't go into and fight those fights with their cousins, how we always say that, go talk to your people, because we're not allowed there. We won't be heard there. Right. And so, that's what an accomplice will do. And I feel like, again, with allies that we love and we encourage them to be there, we're just asking for you to listen. We're just asking for you to listen to us, and nothing about us without us. I know that's like such a cliche saying, but it's absolutely true.
Come with an open heart.
Yeah, and come with an open heart. Absolutely.
I think that's the biggest thing. I think for any group, you've got to come with an open heart.
Yeah.
because it's the minute I think, oh gosh, I read it earlier. It was in To Kill a Mockingbird, and it was, it's my dad's favorite book.
I love that book too. I'm like a big Atticus fan.
It's like most people see what they want to see and hear what they want to hear. And you've got to like be careful to make sure, and I'm guilty of it so much. Like I have to check myself constantly. Like, and I'm sure we just haven't known each other long enough, Jennifer, but like eventually I'm going to be like, wait, do you hate me? You did not sound nearly as enthusiastic today as you did yesterday. Are we okay? and the thing is, like, ultimately, like, it comes from like my background. I do my best to fight that, but when I get to that like threshold where that insecurity level's like right there, then it's best for me to not assume and for me to just be like, okay, cards on the table. Are we good?
Yeah. And that's what I'm looking forward to with this, this group, and then also with other people that will be reaching out to, hopefully is just, showing and living those tenets of, good community and reciprocity, and being able to have those conversations and saying, and checking in with each other and saying like, hey, like you said, what is going on? I'm not getting the same kind of like, response. We're not feeling that same energy. Like, is there something off? And a lot of times, I mean, and we know this, it doesn't have anything to do with us. There's something else that's happening. But I think giving people space and holding space for people to, have their life and deal with their life
personally.
is super important. But I'm the same way. Like, I'm like, oh my God, what did I do? Did I say something? I probably did. I got a big mouth. Like, I know I shouldn't have said this and I shouldn't have said that. And then the hamster wheel starts, right? But I think as pitiful human beings, we tend to center ourselves around a lot of issues. And in this work that we're doing, it really takes a lot to decenter yourself, center the true cause and purpose of what it is that you're doing, and surround that with as much love and compassion as you can, so that you don't slip back into those, egocentric, like, why is this happening to me? How, why are people, whatever is happening, so that we don't center ourselves. So again, we're in that like check yourself space and realizing like, okay, what is it that what's really going on here? And one of the things that I've learned along my way is that, I can jump to anger super fast. It is definitely a defense mechanism that I have built over the years because it served me, right? But when I really think about it and I get underneath that surface emotion, there is a fear of something, of losing something, or a fear of whatever that may be, or there's some sort of guilt associated or shame attached to that. And those are the emotions that are so incredibly insidious that can just really, they can take you down. And so I feel like when we're really angry, we have to, why are we angry? And I'm a big believer in my ceremony and the way that I was brought up in the medicines, the 4 sacred medicines that we use. And so like, even now while we're talking, I'm burning sweetgrass because I want our grandmothers to be here. I want our grandmothers to be listening to the conversations that we're having and blessing us with their goodwill and their support and their love, because that is who we learn from. They're with us every step of the way, and they're helping us to create that love letter that I talked about before for the next generation. That's a big thing.
Yeah. Well, I think another huge piece too of like, especially one thing that I've learned from reconnecting, that I think is important and that I've learned from watching in my, anthropological study of social media, is I think so much time is spent caught up in bashing what we hate rather than promoting what we love. And I just, the thing is, like, my concern is not like, you know, like, I'm not mad at you for being negative. I'm concerned about what it's doing to you. You know, like, my concern is, you know, just being upset or being that angry or being that negative that much of the time. You know, I believe in a very holistic, you know, mentality, and that, like, you've got to balance things. And that's what I'm seeing a lot of, is this lack of balance. You know, it's just this constant, like, we're going to just keep speaking on what we hate, what we disagree with, what we dislike, rather than just like, hey, you know what I love? Like, you know what I'm about? This is what I'm about. You know, like, I'm so glad Cordy shared, and Patricia, you know, encouraging her. I love that. That makes my heart so happy to see, like, you know, people who genuinely care how other people feel. And it not having anything to do with a specific blood percentage. And it not even having anything to do with even a race or ethnicity type of thing. It having to do with just the fact that you're a beautiful soul, and that's who you are. And I think we should spend more time celebrating the good when we've had so much bad.
And celebrating each other. I mean, you know, getting to know, you know your neighbors, so to speak, and, you know, reaching out to folks. I mean, that's one of the reasons that, I mean, we haven't really talked about TikTok a lot. I mean, but through the pandemic and through 2020, I mean, I was a hermit. That's just what it was, because I have an underlying health condition, and so I needed to be really careful. And like I said, just kind of watching the world from inside my little bubble, it became a really scary place, and my anxiety went like through the roof. And, you know, I've always kind of battled depression and anxiety, and but I'd never felt frozen before by my anxiety. That was something that was really new. And I just thought, what is going on? And so I really thought about it. I prayed on it. You know, my elders always tell me, Beijigo Sema, that means tobacco first. You put your tobacco down, you ask for that guidance. And so I did, and I was doing that. And I was just like, I just don't understand why it's so overwhelming and consuming. And I started to realize, like, I kept getting these kind of messages that basically were like, you need to get over yourself. Nobody thinks about you that hard. And so one of the things in order to do that is I was just a watcher at first of TikTok. My daughter kind of introduced it to me, and we would send funny videos back and forth to each other. And then when the Kamloops discovery of the 215 babies were found, it just compelled me to do something. And I realized,
and actually, you saying that, we have a comment that says, there are things that are hard to forgive. Residential schools hurt my dad and broke him. I don't know if I can ever forgive that. And I think that the thing is, I'm not telling you that you need to forgive someone. I'm not telling you that you need to feel any specific way. You know, what I'm telling you is that I care about how you're feeling and about how you're doing. If you're upset about it, you're upset about it, and that's valid. And I'm sad that you're feeling upset, but these negative emotions you've got to feel them. You've got to allow yourself to feel them. And so that's the thing. I want to make sure it's known that we're not, like, oh, yeah, kumbaya, like
No,
get over
no.
everything. No, I'm very mad about the adoption system,
Yeah.
my thing is just, there are things that are going to be your break-ins. Like with Tara, like that was her break-in, and she knows herself and she respected that boundary, and that's what you've got to do in order to, take care of yourself, and that's wonderful. My thing is, make sure you're not immersing yourself in things that are too heavy, too negative. You've got to find some happiness and some joy to add into.
Right. At least find a little beauty in the day, because the world is really heavy. And, we start talking about these things and they are so personal to us. Like, again, saying that we're having these lived experiences and in what people call movements, we're actually feeling it. And so really, I think bringing it back into self-care and how we take care of ourselves, breathing, meditating, finding some ways to breathe, drinking water. I say that all the time, breathe and drink water. Those are some of the first things that you can do. And then making sure that you're sleeping and eating, all those things.
White Wolf, you say anger is your vice, unfortunately. Sir, I teach anger management because I was full blown out of control with my anger. Like, I don't know if another person has broken more cell phones than I have.
My auntie used to say that's a rage baby.
Yeah, I'm 5'2", and it's funny because all my clients would be like, "Oh, Miss Jacqueline doesn't get mad," because I'll have people come in and cuss me out, and I'll just be like, "Whatever, you love me," but oh my gosh, I was not like that.
Yeah.
And so, but that's the thing is, I very much made the mistake of allowing myself to be surrounded with, I took on too much negativity. I took on too many causes. I took on the weight of everything.
Yeah.
And I found myself completely drowning.
Yeah.
To where, I barely survived it. And because I experienced that, I became malnourished. I literally weighed probably about 120, 130 pounds less than I do now. I got really sick. It was bad. And so that's the thing, is that was the worst experience of my life. And I just don't want anyone else to ever experience allowing themselves to sink that deeply, because it was hell to climb out of it. It really was. It was, it was not.
Yeah. And I hear, I'm seeing White Wolf is saying that it's always simmering under the bottom. And I would always say I'm already operating at an 8 or a 9. It's not going to take much to get me to 10, and so only through some of the things by, taking my own advice and putting some things into practice that I needed to do in order to feel that it wasn't just gonna, if somebody cuts me off, or, I break my phone, or my kid does something that I don't love, that I don't just pop off and I'm cut everybody's heads off. That's just not, nobody likes that.
I have to have some anger releasing, activities a week. One time for an anger management class, those water balls, the squishy ones.
Oh yeah.
People, we were on the south side, at a housing complex. We're pouring this water and throwing them against the wall. It was me and a bunch of gang members.
Yeah.
And the police know me. I wear big earrings and I always wear kimonos and stuff, and so they just literally just avoid me because they don't want to deal with me. They pulled up and then they saw my kimono and they were like, "Oh gosh, get out of here!"
Let them just throw their water balloons.
They were they're not going to do anything violent if she's there. And so, but no, I would do something every week with my class. Like we would, we made soap, self-care. My thing is like, I just am going to assume you like whatever I like unless you tell me you don't. So like, I don't care
Right.
if you've served 15 years in prison and have FU tattooed on your forehead, and you have an attempted murder case. Like, you're going to make soap with me unless you tell me you don't want to.
Yeah.
And they really like to make soap. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, like they act all like, but no, they like love it. Like they'll be like, does anyone have the patchouli or the bergamot scent? They get all bougie about it.
That's great. I love it. I love
But
it.
it's
Because
true,
I've
like,
seen that happen too. And but we did we always did cooking, you know,
yeah,
we would
OSHA.
choose like, you know, something that we really wanted to do, and they were like, you know, people would get super particular about that. And especially kids, they love that. So any kind of that activity where you're just putting your energy into making something, into creating something, I think that really helps kind of channel some of that energy. And you know, we always would laugh at each other and say, you put enough love in there because it's going to taste like shit if you don't.
I was just giving such a hard time on this. Like, are you making fun of us thought gangsters? OSHA, these are literal gangsters, like that were mandated in my class. Like people on
us tough gangsters. Yeah.
like people on house arrest that were not allowed to leave home except to go to my class because they were a danger to society, and like in combative gangs. But I always made sure, like, there's a truce in Miss Jacqueline's class. You can't fight in Miss Jacqueline's class because that would stress me out and that's rude. And then I won't give you stickers.
Yeah, or chocolate.
Whatever. I wouldn't give them chocolate. I would eat it. But, no, but I like soap is great because it's got the scents and but no, I had like literally Mexican Mafia, MS-13, Tango Blast, Orejons, like and I even bought glitter.
And they probably loved it.
It was Miss Jacqueline's class. That's what it was known as. That's why my handle is Miss Jacqueline, please. Is that because when they come out of prison, they're so used to having to have a moniker, like, so that's why they call me Miss Jacqueline. And so yeah, no, oh my gosh, I think I have soap in here actually. But I bought molds. We did flowers. We did jewels. And then I even gave him rubber duckies, except for I got in trouble with one client because he was at an inpatient rehab and he had nowhere to put his rubber duckies and his locker got raided. And he had arranged his rubber duckies like a family and everyone was giving him a hard time. He's like, just go to Miss Jacqueline's class. You'll realize like she doesn't let you get away with not taking a rubber ducky. White Wolf, you would make soaps and you would love it. So I don't even want to hear it. I don't think you realize how hard it is to say no to all this energy. You would too, OSHA. Like I don't think y'all realize like there's a reason they put me with the most dangerous. It's because I am like so convincing because I'm like, no, listen, this is going to be so fun. Guys, this is going to be so fun. I promise this is going to be so fun. And then they just get so sick of listening to me that they're like, fine, we'll do it.
Yeah. And it's something, you know, and that again, it just gives people some space, you know, to just not have to be so hard, not have to be so tough, not have to be anything, but just in that moment. And I think it's about mindfulness, you know, about just being there and like, who cares what it is? You know, it's soaps.
Let people be,
right.
You know, and that was the thing that I love. I miss my classes so much.
Yeah.
I still go to the hood and like check in, but I miss having them come to me because it was, I mean, my Spanish is so like hit or miss. I'm not going to lie. Like I once accidentally I meant to offer crackers Instead, I told someone fresh out of prison, "Do you want to shut up?"
Yeah.
It's like a really close line in Spanish, and I'm not great at it. But if you say it smiling, I find that people don't threaten you. I was so confident too. I was like, "¿Quieres galleta? Cállate?" Instead of galletas. Oh gosh, I love those people. They're my lovelies. But no, and that's the thing. There's just so much negativity, and it's draining, and you got to take a break from it. Like
Right.
be negative on like Thursdays. Like, don't be negative on Wednesdays.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, it's just in small ways, right, that we try to get through the things that get put in front of us, the obstacles that we have, and we just have to kind of put those things into practice. And, we don't get it perfect. Again, like I said, we're all, especially as Indigenous people, we're overwhelmed. And sometimes I open up my email or I open up, even TikTok, and I'm just like, what is happening? Why is this happening? And I don't understand a lot of things. I don't understand the inhumanity that I see. And so I just have to really, again, like check myself and be like, okay, so I'm not going to be able to fight this huge battle all by myself. I'm going to try to pick and choose what I need to do. I'm going to go look at the lake today. I'm going to go find something beautiful to be grateful for. And then I'm going to move on, and I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing and stay focused and try not to get sidetracked, because, in our culture and our teachings, that is the opposite spirit. As you're moving forward, as you're doing beautiful things, as you're doing beautiful work, and you're moving in that way, that opposite spirit will come at you, and it will try to put all kinds of obstacles in your way that you would never even think about.
I know nothing about this. Like, I'm one of those reconnecting natives that like will just straight up be like, I know nothing. So like, I would love to hear more on that.
Yeah. And you just have to stop and really think, like, is this an obstacle that deserves my attention? Is this something that I can actually solve? Is it something that I need to even pay attention to? Or do I just keep moving towards my destination on this journey, the next thing? So our elders would always say, like, when you're trying to get to ceremony, you'll forget your skirt, or you'll get a flat tire, or you might get pulled over. All three of those things have happened to me. And you just keep moving. You keep getting there. You just go. And don't be ashamed or sad or whatever. Just get there, because that's where you're supposed to be. And don't worry about that other crap, because
it's trying to just get you off the path.
Yeah, it's trying to deter you from what your true purpose is, and from engaging in that beautifulnose of life, that good life that we've been gifted. And so it is really difficult, because man, sometimes those curveballs that come are really strong and hard and fast, and they knock you down and they knock the wind out of you. And it's going to take a minute to recover from that. And that's okay too, but we get to a place where we realize, like, none of that is worth it. It's not worth my mental health. It's not worth the relationships that I have formed. It's not worth that. It's not worth my relationship with Creator, with my ancestors, with the spirits, the community that I have, in ceremony, the community that I have outside of ceremony, and the way that I interact with, our teachings and our customary practices. It's not worth losing that. That's too important to me. I spent a lot of part of my life, my grandpa always said, you can't walk in both worlds, my girl. And I didn't really understand what he said or what he meant. And it really took me a while to think about it. But, and I'm a little bit embarrassed to admit this, but once I really started drinking, because I started drinking really young, but once it became like a regular thing, I remembered what he said. And instead of putting that away, I chose to put my spiritual self and my spirituality on the shelf, back in the back corner of a closet. And I chose to drink, and I chose to use. And when I sobered up, and after I got through like the white knuckle part of sobering up, I sobered up, and I had shared that earlier when a really good friend of mine had passed away. The year I sobered up, I lost 7 people, really close people, like
I'm so sorry.
people that were like, like a lady who was like my mom that I miss every day. And I thought, while I was having that journey into sobriety, I'm like, this is the dumbest thing, the dumbest time to sober up.
Yeah.
This is ridiculous. Like, and I would talk to my friends and I'd be like, I'll do whatever you want if you just let me drink tonight. Like, that's where I was in that bargaining stage. And so and once that passed and I got some reprieve from that, I was able to see a little bit more clearly, and I was able to understand that obsession had been lifted, and I was able to really start to make amends, not just to other people that I had hurt, but for myself. And one of the things that I had to do is I had to make amends to Creator, because I had put my spiritual self away in a box. And that was tough. It was tough to like think about that. It was tough to, it was hard to, pull that out and really look at that in the clear light of day and be accountable to myself and, to Creator, to my ancestors. And then, I had to grieve for that, and that was okay. But then I moved forward, and I said, all right, this is what I'm going to do. And like I said, I've spent every day since these last 14 and a half years of this recovery journey, really trying to put back good into the world.
That's
to
amazing.
Really, just focus on how can I make a good impact? How do I leave a better place for my daughter? How do I leave a better place for my niece?
Yeah.
How can I help my fellow human being along the way? My friend always gets mad at me, and it's so dumb. Whenever we're through like just a whatever fast food drive-through, I will always pay for the person behind me.
Oh.
Because I'm just like, can we just pay it forward? Like just a little bit.
My someone's day better.
Yeah, I mean, I don't care what it is. Like, you're gonna get a coffee, fine, I'll pay for it. Who cares? And don't tell them that I did it. My daughter's birthday is on National Kindness Day, and so we always take things and we give gifts out to people. That's kind of one of the traditions that we've built, and that's also something that we've been taught from our elders is we gift out to the people that we love in celebration of everything that they gave us, since we've been born. And so when she was little, she would always go through all of her toys and she would pick out toys that, her best toys, and then she would give them to her classmates, just little things like that.
You know what you remind me of? So, like I said, I didn't know my history growing up. I didn't know anything about my ethnicity. So like any world culture project was like terrifying. Like anyway, so I learned anything I could about any culture. But you remind me like kind of what you were saying about the opposite spirit, but also just how you are. There's this Japanese concept called Ikigai, and it's about the reason for being. And it's essentially your Ikigai is you take what you love, what you're good at, what you can be paid for, and what the world needs. And at the very center is your Ikigai. And so it's kind of, what is that called when the, oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the, when the circles like overlap.
Oh, the Venn diagram?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like,
no, that's all right.
Thank goodness you knew.
I know we would have been like,
remember some obscure Japanese words. I can remember Venn diagram. But anyway, it's like this really like crazy Venn diagram that has all these different things. And then like within it, it's like passion, mission, vocation, profession. And then at the very center is Ikigai, and it's your purpose for being, or your reason for being. And I've always thought that was so cool. And it really is a lot like what you were saying, where it's that like, your path, kind of what you were saying earlier too. Like, your reason for being put on the earth, for choosing to come back. Which is cool because, like I said, I knew none of that. I'm not like one of those I believe that everyone you meet knows something you don't, and I have no problem admitting when I don't know something. So I'm loving having the opportunity to learn more from you. This is amazing.
It's really good to talk with you too.
Because it really is. It's so interesting, and and I know I really want to encourage like other people who are in my situation who are reconnecting. Don't be afraid to come from a point of like, I don't know. I think
nobody knows. One of my elders who is got to be reaching 90 at this point, he would always say, this tip of my pinky, that's how much I know in the span of the universe times infinity.
But I just, when we were talking about like the open heart, coming with that, like, I think a lot of people have a hard time admitting, or they feel like it shows weakness to like admit that they're not knowledgeable in a subject, or that they are, way back here while these other people are up here. But I think it's important to remember that like life's like this isn't a competition, it's a collaboration,
right?
And it's like knowing this stuff, like why would I be threatened by that? Like I want to know that stuff. So like I'm here like this.
I'll share a secret with you that I can see Oja's in our chat and he'll be laughing, and so will everybody else. So I'm the kind of Indian that doesn't know how to make fry bread. So it's like, what the heck? People will say that, and I come from some like wicked fry bread makers, and I don't know what it is. It's not my journey. I don't know. I've tried. I've really tried, and we're gonna try again. My daughter wants to try. It's not like, it's just, maybe it's because I come from such good fry bread makers that I'm way too super critical about it. But I just have to pick it up or try it again. But yeah, I can't. I'll admit
it's to make people like me feel less threatened. Yeah. Like I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I can't do it.
Maybe I could make fry bread. No, but no, I really hope.
I don't know, Oja, quit messing with me. I don't know. I just said that. I said I think I came from too good of fry bread makers, and I can't do it. I can't replicate it.
I'll try and gummy. Gross. No matter.
But you know what? I can get it. I know where to get it. Does that count? Like,
see, that's all you need to know. But no, I hope more people, like, I want more people to feel empowered, and there's nothing to be ashamed of in reconnecting and not knowing. And people love to teach people things. It's a beautiful thing.
Right. And I, so sometimes I have kind of like an issue with that word reconnecting, because we're all reconnecting. We're all connecting like all the time. Even if
then mine would be like someone who just came out of like left field, like didn't even know I was in the ballpark.
Yeah, but that's the thing.
Somehow wandered in and found Oja, and Oja was like, "Go over there," and I was like, "Okay."
Yeah, but see, that is the beauty of our connection, right? That Creator places us where we need to be when we need to be there. And so we just trust in that. We trust in the process, and we just try to, I get in my own way all the time. And so we try to stay out of our own way and let it move forward. Let it move you forward. And so, I feel like none of us know exactly what we're doing. We're just trying to really be caring, considerate, compassionate people that are coming with love and open minds and open hearts, like you said, and, trying to have this human experience, you know, right? As spiritual beings. Like we hear that all the time.
I love that you say that, because I've always viewed it as like, you can either take the pain and trauma that you have experienced and use it to reduce your life to some sad story that's going to garner sympathy and get you attention, or you can take that same pain and use it to reach within yourself and to that empathy and use it to truly help and love others. And I would just rather do the latter.
Right.
I don't like love to be the center of attention, but also I want to make other people feel better and feel good.
And I mean, that is what we want to do. We want to spread, you know, we want to spread the joy. We want to spread the love, you know, we want to make sure that people understand, you know, what we're doing and why we're doing it. And I think maybe that's like kind of a good segue. I know we had talked briefly about during these meetings and these lives that we would spotlight an MMIW case. And I think Maya might have one for us. And I would really like to just give her the floor so that, you know, so we can talk about that and share that out with folks.
And then let people go to sleep.
Yeah,
I know. So first of all, I just want to thank you guys from the bottom of my heart. You know, one of the amazing things about having sisters, right, and having this circle of women who care deeply about each other, is that when you're in a place of need, right, they're there and they help to carry you. And so I just want to say that I appreciate you guys for taking the reins of the program this evening. I received some pretty heartbreaking news earlier today, so I was not in any kind of mental shape or capacity to facilitate the talk today, and I didn't want to bring bad medicine, which is why I kind of stayed in the background a bit. But I love you both, and I appreciate your help tonight. So in terms of MMIW, we are going to highlight, let me grab my photo here, and it's covering the screen a little. I'm sorry, Jacqueline. I think I'm covering your whole self.
That's okay. I was like just taking a bite of a brownie.
Fully.
I don't feel so bad then. So this young lady is missing out of California. Her name's Kiona Beecher. She was last seen on September 9th. She's usually around the Central Valley area of California, so Fresno and Aubrey, I think it looks like, is where her normal stomping grounds are, right? She was last seen wearing a black tank top and black shorts. She has a tattoo on her shoulder and another on her left wrist. If you or anybody that's in our audience, in our comment section, happens across this recording later, has seen her, please reach out either via Facebook to the information that's on this picture. And the good thing about this recording is that it is a recording. And so you will be able to kind of play it back, pause it, look at it a little longer. But so contact her mother through Facebook Messenger or call 559-682-0698. She's been, again, missing since September 9th, so I know that her family, her mother, and her loved ones want her home, and they want her home safe. So I think we're going to do this every week that we gather for a meeting or discussion. We will highlight, one sister who has gone missing. Hi, you're back. Hello there. Nice to see you.
I was like taking my earrings off, like
we're done.
I'm like, oh, we're good.
All done. So again, I really want to thank you two for doing what we do, right? We step up for each other and we we carry each other when we need to be carried and helped and all that good stuff. And so I couldn't ask for a better group of women on this council. I couldn't ask for a better vice chair in Jen and a better, beautiful PR person in Jacqueline. So I appreciate you both. I appreciate all of you in the comment section. I hope to see you all again next Monday. Go ahead, Jen. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, Miigwich, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. I'm half blind, and then my glasses were glaring on the screen, so I couldn't really see everybody. So I apologize for not so responsive. I'll try to get better at that. But Miigwich.
Thanks. It was fun.
Okay, everyone. Thanks for showing. Have a great night, and we'll see everybody again next Monday.
Yeah, and blessings to you, Maya. I'll keep you in my prayers, and
Thank you.
I just, my love is with you. So, Miigwich, sister.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much, Ajo. Thank you. Thanks, Jacqueline, for everything. I was gonna have us meet backstage, but I think we're gonna just call it, and we'll talk tomorrow.
Sounds great. Sleep well, everybody.
Love you. Love you guys.
Love you guys.
Good night,
Love
everybody.
you guys. Take care.